Hello, I am currently sitting in my BMW iX. When I made the decision to change my Model 3, I needed to go back into the market and look for something else. So I thought today I would talk about all the different cars that I considered, what my wish list was, and why they didn't make the cut.
So, the list of requirements. Taking all the feedback of owning the Model 3, I sort of come to this rough list that I was looking for. Number one, I wanted it to be four-wheel drive. Might seem a bit silly, but the plan with this car was to not need to change again for quite some time. Family-wise, nothing was planning to change, so basically this car would have to fit our lifestyle for the foreseeable future. When it does get snowy, it's nice to have that peace of mind, basically. Entertainment system, wanted to have Apple CarPlay. As much as Tesla had done a great job with the entertainment system, I typically tend to change my phone more often than you're going to change your car. I also like the idea of having a panoramic roof. I really like that in the Model 3, and my son liked it as well. I think it, brings light into the cabin. It's a nice, cool, futuristic thing to have. So that definitely had to be on the list. Having sufficient storage space. I wasn't too concerned with not having a frunk, as many of these manufacturers hadn't really got onto that yet. They're starting to now, but certainly back then they didn't really consider that. Everything was for the electronics. I kind of forgot my frunk, really. It was only useful for holding charging cables, and I'd only need that if I was charging on a slower charger and we were on a road trip. I can probably count on one hand how often that happened. I'd like to have some additional technology, just things that I feel I missed out on the Model 3. Things like the heads-up display, dot matrix lights, tailgate. Those were the main ones. I suppose I should clarify that I was only ever going to be looking at the second-hand market. I didn't want to buy a brand new car again, especially considering that the Model 3 had depreciated quite badly. I mean, most cars do. So I figured now that there was a lot of choice in the marketplace, in the second-hand market, it makes sense to look there. And then you're getting away from the depreciation, at least the majority of the depreciation that's occurred. So yeah, the Model Y. That sounded like it was going to be the next replacement. You see, the thing is, having owned the Model 3 for 6 years, I'd become quite familiar with the pros and the cons of owning a Tesla. And if I was only interested in having some additional space and some newer hardware, then maybe the Model Y would have been a perfect fit. The problem is after 6 years, I was ready for a change. The Model Y was a bit too similar. Certainly, if I was looking in the second-hand market, Model Ys were probably starting to get close to the 25 grand mark. It's great with the Model Y because in terms of packages, you just have to know what the model is, what the trim is, and a lot of stuff comes as standard or is available as a software update. Regardless of that, it still didn't feel like it was a complete change. And annoyingly, there were some instances of Tesla starting to move the goalposts in terms of trialing out on their customers different sensor technologies. So moving from something like your ultrasonics, which, are kind of standard these days, to using a vision system. So regarding the BMW iX3, certainly that seemed like an ideal alternative. And it looked the part. However, the thing that sort of put me off was the range. I think the range was probably quoting about, say, 280 miles, even though it would be on a 84 kilowatt hour battery, which was bigger than the Tesla Model 3. It was rear wheel drive as well, which for an SUV of that stature, I would kind of assume would at least be able to be four-wheel drive. And I suppose there were just little things here and there which showed that it was a combustion car first, and it had been converted to an EV after the fact. Kia EV6 definitely had the tech, had good range. It was a, what do they call it, a crossover? It certainly wasn't a full SUV, but it wasn't a sedan sort of class car. The only issue with it that I found was appearances weren't particularly great. They later fixed this in a later refresh, but in order to get the refresh, you'd have to spend on a brand new car. There was nothing in the second-hand market. The Kia EV3, that seemed to be a good contender as well. It was an SUV, it had great range, it was modern. The issue with that was it was only being sold as front-wheel drive. I would have thought they would have offered a four-wheel drive version in the higher tiers, but no, I guess they were holding off for the EV5 on that occasion. And of course, because it was brand new, it would be a lot more expensive. EV5 looked the part. That was literally just entering the Australian market, I think. So that wasn't going to be around for a while, and that was going to be too expensive. Volkswagen ID.7, never owned a Volkswagen before, and I wasn't particularly a fan of how they had done the ID.3, ID.4, ID.5 range, particularly with the multimedia buttons and just their first crack basically at an EV car where it looked a bit weird. I liked actually the EV7's, the estate version. That was giving me second thoughts on whether I actually needed to go with an SUV for effectively the storage. I could potentially get an estate instead. Unfortunately, while the ID.7's sedan was out, the estate version was coming out, but if I wanted to have four-wheel drive, that was going to come out in the GTX model, and that was not in the marketplace at the time.
So yeah, that's the list. I mean, there were a couple of models here and there, but those were the ones that I really considered. Are any of them bad cars? No. But if I was going to be keeping this car for an extended period of time, I just needed it to be right. And of course, the BMW iX isn't perfect either, but I think it ticks enough of the boxes to make it something that I'm going to live with without any regrets. If you enjoyed watching, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. See ya.